Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice Radio. So today, we've got a brand new item card that we can be having a little bit of a look at. And it's a little bit weird, and it's a little bit kind of risky, but it could really help a whole bunch of decks. You may or may not be amazed and surprised and shocked and dumbfounded to learn that our translation does come, in fact, from the lovely Antoine Boulet. And what we have here is a brand new item card, which is called Camping Set. And according to the lovely Antoine Boulet, what it does is you search your deck for any card you like, whatever you want, and shuffle your deck, but then your turn ends. By using this card, your turn ends. Okay. Honestly, that sounds kind of cool. Look, I am not saying for even a second that this is going to magically make every single deck better. You've got the fact that it ends your turn, and we've seen cards like this before. We'll see more as we go along. The fact of the matter is, not every deck is going to be able to play this. There are going to be far too many, fire decks are going to look at this and go, oh yeah, mate, I got Volcanion. So, if it's alright with you, I'm going to use Flare Starter to search my deck for free fire energy and attach them to my Pokemon in any way I like. Sorry if that's offensive to you, and that's an absolutely fair point. If you go second. Because you see, one of the things we need to bear in mind right off the bat here is there are plenty of times where you're going to be going first. About half the time, in fact. And when you go first, you're not going to have a good turn one option. The vast majority of decks don't. So what that means is you're going to end your turn without attacking anyway, and if you're going to end your turn without attacking anyway, you might as well play this. But then again, are there any better options we've got? So one of the ones that springs to mind immediately for me is Rotom Bike. Rotom Bike is a card I'm a big fan of. You draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hand, but then your turn ends. The thing is, I actually quite like Rotom Bike purely because of Rotom. Now, this came in Shiny Star V over in Japan. I think it is extremely safe to assume that it is going to be coming along in Shining Fates over here. And basically, when you play it from your hand to your bench, you get to search your deck for 2 cards with Rotom in its name and put them in your hand. So I'm thinking you go first, turn 1, you quick ball for a Rotom, play Rotom to search for Rotom Bike, and then you can essentially just play 1 Rotom Bike in your deck. But if you go first, you can use Quick Ball for Rotom, Rotom for Rotom Bike, and even though you're only playing 1 of these in your deck, you should have a pretty good route to actually finding it on that first turn you want it. Because here's another thing we really need to bear in mind here. You want this turn 1 in a majority of decks. So you want to be playing 4 of them to maximize the chance of hitting this turn 1. But then you don't really want 4 copies. You want 1 copy. Like most people want 1 copy of this card. So that if they go first, they can use it turn 1. And if they don't go first, they don't use it turn 1. And then, okay, fine, it's in their deck. And this will be a fine emergency card. There will be plenty of times where this card works as an emergency. Where it's kind of, I have nothing else. I have to go for this right now. Those turns where you have nothing. And what I really love about this, on those turns where you have nothing, on turns which are very clearly and obviously emergency turns, this will be there. Like, if you've got a completely, you take a big lead, your opponent plays a reset stamp down to 1. What if this is the 1 card? You go ahead and swap it for a Professor's Research, and okay, your turn ends, but you've essentially drawn out of it in 2 turns. And if you've taken a big enough lead, you'll have the turns to bring it back, as opposed to you draw a card. It's not a good card. You draw another card. It's not a good card. It gives you more outs to drawing into a nice card, which is rather lovely. So it's good if you go first, And it's good for emergencies in the mid to late game. But the fact of the matter is, unless we've got a good way to find it, most decks aren't going to play it. For the same reason most decks aren't going to play Rotom Bike. Now, if you compare this to something like the Snorlax from Vivid Voltage, it's very, very different. Now, Snorlax from Vivid Voltage lets you draw until you've got 7 cards in your hand, and then your turn ends, but Snorlax is a Pokemon, which means it's fairly easily searched out, which is a good thing. Now you have to get it into the active and then later out the active, etc. Worry about that later, but that's why something like Snorlax is seeing play with something like Rotom Bike isn't. So essentially you've got this awkward situation where it gets you any one card and it's amazing, yay, etc. But actually very few decks are going to play it because you want it turn 1, but you're not going to be playing it in enough numbers, in large enough numbers to reliably get it turn 1, and it's all a bit awkward. I still like it a lot more than old PC. Old PC, you flip 2 coins. If both of them are heads, you put any card from your discard pile into your deck, which is awesome, but I'd rather end my turn than play a card where I've only got a 1 in 4 chance of it actually working. But then again, there are some decks out there for which this is going to work rather nicely. You see, there are decks out there, legitimate decks out there, that play Munchlax. And the thing about Munchlax is that Munchlax has an ability, the one from Unified Mind, that ends your turn. You flip a coin, and if heads, you put any card from your discard pile on top of your deck. Regardless, your turn ends, whether you flip heads or not. And in a world where Munchlax is seeing play because it can get you that specific card that you need, why would this not? The thing about Rotom Bike is, you've got to empty out your hand, and even if you, say, have 4 spaces in your hand, you've got a 2-card hand, you draw 4 cards, you may or may not get it. Here, you're guaranteed to get it, whatever it is that you want, and you don't have to whittle down your hand. So, if you've got a Welder in hand, this will guarantee you the Giant Half, which will then get you the 2 energy you need to take advantage of Welder next turn. If your opponent has got a Big Charm, and you're able to do 280 to an ADP, but not enough to cover the Big Charm as well, go and grab your Tool Scrapper to get rid of it. That's the difference here. And it's not for every deck, but Munchlax sees play in those decks with Florges and Lily's Pokédoll, where essentially you're not looking to attack, you're looking to block. You want to end every turn with a Lily's Pokédoll in the active, so your opponent can take a KO, but they can't take a prize. And in decks that aren't looking to attack, it doesn't matter if you end your turn. So you end up playing something like Munchlax. Now, Munchlax is specifically good in that deck because you do want to recover your Lily's Pokédoll. Florges can also recover them also on a coin flip. So the theory is, if you've got like a couple of Florges and a Munchlax out, you should be able to recover a Lily's Pokédoll every turn. But then if you can get Lily's Pokédoll back with Florges, wouldn't it be nice to then play this to guarantee any card from your deck and end your turn? I mean, how many times have you been playing a Stage 2 deck and lost because you couldn't find a rare candy or you couldn't find your Stage 2? You need the candy Stage 2. You need them right now. You need them instantly. If you don't get them, you fall behind, you lose. This will guarantee you get whichever card it is that you don't currently have in your hand. Sure, it ends your turn, but if I'm playing a Stage 2 deck and I go first and I can guarantee the turn 2 Stage 2, that's all I want from my Stage 2 deck. Sounds good to me. I mean, this can search out special energy like triple acceleration energy. Now, of course, there is a giant downside here, we need to mention it, Marnie and Reset Stamp. Because if I play this to end my turn, I have basically ended my turn to grab what is most definitely the perfect card from my deck. So if my opponent has any chance whatsoever to draw and play a Marnie, you know that they're going to go deep to get that Marnie, so that they're going to slow me down, shut me out the game, etc. That's a downside, right? It is one that we've really got to bear in mind here. It sucks, but there it is, unfortunately. I don't like this in every deck. I love it, turn 1 going first in basically every deck that isn't playing like Snorlax, but like I've said, you want to play it as a 4-of to maximize your chances, but a 1-of because you only ever want to play it once. But in Stage 2 decks, we're getting that rare candy is everything. I love it. In blocking decks, like Florges, like the old Wailord EX decks, where you're going to end your turn without attacking anyway, I love it. In the mid to late game, when you're desperate, I love it. It is not an every deck card. Let's be super clear. There are going to be many, many, many decks out there that have absolutely no interest in this card for excellent reasons, and it's hard to argue against them. But for those decks that are going to want to play it, for those decks that are interested, oh, this one's going to be fun. I'm giving it between 3 or 4 Wassies, and that could end up being really high or really low. Either way, this is exactly the kind of card I want to see being printed. It's not going to instantly see play in every deck, and it's not going to go and make the best decks better. It is a weird kind of card which is only going to work for certain decks, but in those decks, it is going to make them better, and it's going to give us a more varied format. And frankly, I'm into it, ladies and gentlemen. I am into it. But I want to know if you're into it. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.